Hello and welcome. I'm Gohar Raza and you are watching Eureka, a program that brings you face to face with a scientist who has contributed significantly to the area of either producing something or expanding the horizon of scientific knowledge. Today we have a very special guest. Her work may seem to be very mundane, and you may think that what is so great about soybean? But cutting-edge science and cutting-edge technology is required to increase or shift the parameters of any of the crops in the country. Welcome to Rajya Sabha channel, Dr. Anita.
Thank you.
Dr. Anita, let me not begin by exploring what you have achieved during this period. Anyway, congratulations for getting... Let's go back to your school days. How do you recollect your period of primary education? Do you remember your school?
Yeah. I was born and brought up in Hisar, a district of Haryana. I did my schooling from Yashoda Girls High School, which was initially a Hindi medium school. Later they started English medium when I was in 8th standard. So most of the students reverted back to Hindi medium because Haryana Board of School Education did not print English medium books at that time. So I purchased books from for the higher classes and studied from them to give my school examination. And
higher classes meaning you were in 5th class?
No, 8th class.
8th class.
Okay.
You were in 8th class, and then you had to study your course from 9th class or 10th class book.
Yeah, for +1 and +2, because that was not, school books were not.
+1 and +2.
Because school books were not there in English medium.
They hadn't prepared the books, but they shifted from Hindi medium to English medium. Suddenly. And then you were excited that you are going to English medium?
Yeah, I liked it, but it was a bit difficult. So I purchased books.
Most of the students said no, we don't want English medium.
Most of the students reverted back to Hindi medium that time.
It was difficult for them?
Yeah, it was difficult for them.
But you liked it and you had to slog?
Because I got interested on those higher classes books, and during that time I got fascinated by the work of Gregor Mendel, who's now known as father of genetics. So I didn't know how
When did you first time hear his name?
First time in the books only.
Oh, you read it in the books of
+1 and +2.
1 and 2. Yeah. And there you got fascinated by his work.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? He solved the problem of biology with the power of mathematics, and I was very good in mathematics. I liked it. he was like much ahead of biologists. He discovered genes 100 years before the discovery of DNA. Simply working in his kitchen garden, he was looking at the garden pea plants. They were segregating in a definite ratio. The flower color, the seed shape and seed color, and the plant height. Always he was getting 3:1 ratio. Then he thought, why he is getting the same ratio? Then he gave a term factor. That factor is segregating. Later this word was known as gene. 100 years after his death.
100 years
after his death.
So he was what is known as sleeping beauties in science for a very long time.
Yeah, then he was named father of genetics 100 years after his death.
After his death. And that fascinated you?
Yeah, that fascinated me.
But you were very good. You scored always very high in mathematics, 100% almost.
Yeah.
In every class. Yeah. Why didn't you go for mathematics?
Actually...
Why later on suddenly genetics?
Not exactly genetics directly. Actually, going to agriculture, that was a decision of my father. And my father was persuaded by his friend, whose daughter was already studying in BSc Agriculture. So I took admission in agriculture.
Coming to your father was a fascinating person.
Yeah.
Your family migrated probably from other parts to Hisar.
Yeah.
And your grandfather was killed in a communal riot in the country. And your father was a very young at that time.
Yeah.
And he struggled pretty hard. He just couldn't get educated because of the family problems. But he took the decision that the next generation is going to be well educated, and he did all that was to be done for you to get educated.
Yeah.
So why your father was so fascinated by science that you should be doing science, and why agriculture? Because he was in PWD.
Yeah, he was in PWD.
He was a foreman, and your mother was also
A
a
housewife,
homemaker,
yeah.
housewife. So why you went into science?
Actually, even he was not educated, but he read about Dr. Hargobind Khorana, who worked in USA on genetics. He was fascinated by work. He wanted me to work like there should be
Hargobind
something.
Khorana.
Yeah, Hargobind Khorana.
How did he know it?
From the papers he came, newspaper. There was some story on him. He read the story and he told me that he's worked so great. You also should work like him. So he was too great.
So right as a child, he was molding you to do something which was great.
Yeah.
Uh, and he used to say that anybody can earn money, but
Yeah.
do something which will make me proud.
Yeah, right, right. He wanted me to study higher and higher. Actually, even he was not having that much money that time, but he saved all his money and worked overtime and always encouraged me to buy more and more books so that I can enhance my knowledge and can work something good.
He could read and write.
Yeah, he could read and write, but not the formal school education he could get.
That is what was lacking.
That was lacking.
And he knew that next generation has to study, get education, and rise much above
Yeah,
what he has been able to achieve.
yeah. Actually, he was so interested in my education that one incident in my life, that education career, when my MSc project work got delayed due to a use of some expired chemical, acrylamide, so I was not getting my desired results. I realized my mistake very late when I got some fresh lot of chemical and got the result overnight. When he came to know about this, that I was not getting result because of the chemical, then he was so sad and he was asking, always asking, why I didn't take money from him to buy the chemicals. Even after joining scientists, whenever I went home, he asked the same question, do you need some money to carry out your experiment? That was his...
We'll continue the discussion. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back soon. I have to take a break. Welcome back. Dr. Anita, we were discussing that you faced a lot of hardship during your childhood and education period, especially primary education period. Did you receive scholarships to continue higher studies, or it was supported by your father?
Yeah, I got scholarship, but somehow the government rejected because my father's salary was more than 500 rupees at that time. So ultimately my father supported me, and in my BSc then they gave me some merit fellowship, and during MSc I got the CSR UGC fellowship to continue my studies.
To continue your, and that supported your higher education.
Yeah.
Otherwise it would have been much more difficult.
Yeah.
Probably your father would have slugged a lot. In the class you were a lone lady student, right?
Yeah.
How difficult was it with 59 boys and just one girl in the class?
Yeah, actually that time agriculture was not a norm for the girls. So my father made me to take admission. Ultimately I liked the agriculture. It was initially uncomfortable with so many boys and no girls. Ultimately all of them became friends, and one of them is my husband.
And you met your better half?
Yeah.
During that period?
Yeah, during that period.
When did you fall in love with him?
Actually, I was dependent on him for my notes because no girl was there. So he used to help me in my notes. So ultimately...
It was he who fell in love with you.
Maybe.
Okay, I'll not go into that. But both of you always were very keen that you wanted to do research.
Yeah.
And not teaching.
Yeah.
You didn't apply for any of the teaching jobs?
No, I didn't apply for the teaching posts.
Never?
Never, never.
And then you persuaded him to join this...
ICAR.
Yeah, ICAR.
Actually, I wanted to be in the same organization with him so that I can get a permanent team member at the home. So, so it become easier
so
to
you
work.
wanted to continue research even at home.
Yeah.
And you had decided that you will marry a person who will be with you in the laboratory and at
home also.
How has it been?
It has been very wonderful, discussing everything at field, lab, and then at home while cooking, while dining. Sometimes it leads to fight also. We fight over our results and experiments. Ultimately,
How often fights are there?
very regular, very regular.
Very regular fights on results and conclusions and experiments.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very regular. In any case, science never progresses without disagreements.
Yeah.
Science does progress when you disagree with your
Right.
superiors, your predecessors, and your colleagues, and that is how you come to new experiments and new results.
Right.
Probably.
Yeah.
How difficult it was to bring up your child, uh, because you and your husband, both of you have very long working hours
Yeah.
in the lab.
We used to keep him at daycare center up to 5 o'clock. After 5 o'clock, we used to pick him up and take him to our lab. And the lab became his playground. He picked up the terms of all the scientific terms and instruments before he could speak A for apple. So, one interesting incident is there. Once his teacher was teaching about acids in the 5th or 6th standard, like hydrochloric acid and this sulfuric acid. He stood up, "Madam, what is omega-3 fatty acid?" Naturally, she couldn't reply.
Omega-3 fatty
Fatty
acids.
acids.
Water.
So he came back home, then said me, "Teacher is not knowing anything. She's just telling sulfuric acid, hydrochloric acid. She doesn't know anything about omega-3 fatty acid."
So, could he explain to the teacher what it was all about?
No, he was happy that teacher could not reply my question.
And then he came back home and
Yeah.
narrated
Yeah.
this is story.
Yeah.
Now, why did you choose to work on soybean?
Not exactly I chose to work on soybean. Actually, I was posted in Modipuram and my husband was in Delhi. So we wanted a common post, and Indore was having 2 posts, so we joined here, and it was a soybean institute. We started working on that and we found something very interesting, and we started working on those parameters.
So it wasn't your choice. You could have worked on anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
Because from ICAR, you could have gone to any other part of the country and worked
Yeah.
there. It was because that you wanted to be with your
Husband.
husband. Both of you wanted to be together, and there were 2 posts. How satisfying it's been working on soybean?
Yeah, it is very wonderful crop. It has so many things to work on. No other crop is having. It is full of nutraceutical. It has oil content, high protein content. Then the quality of oil is very important. Then tocopherol it is having isoflavone, which is antioxidant and anti-cancer also. So working on all these parameters really very interesting.
At one point of time, the world thought that soybean, which comes from China, would solve all the problem of food, and it will provide food security to human beings. Do you still think that that is the way?
Actually, soybean was introduced in India just because of this nutritional security, because our population is deficient in protein. But unfortunately, it did not happen like that. Oil is extracted from the soybean. The rest is called DOC, de-oiled cake, which is exported back to other countries. So we are getting good amount of money, but it's not going to our population. So there are some undesirable factors in the soybean. So people were not taking it. Some anti-nutritional, something that is giving off flavor. So people don't get used to it. So we thought of working on those parameters so that people start liking the consumption of soybean at household level.
So you think that we as Indians have not been able to adapt to soybean because of cultural reasons and our taste buds?
Yeah. Actually, in other countries like Japan and China, they are eating fermented soya product. And Indians are not so used to those fermented products, giving some different type of smell. So we thought of making it mixing it with flour to make it chapati. And to make it chapati, we need to remove some anti-nutritional factors. So we worked on those parameters.
I have to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back soon. Welcome back. Dr. Anita, it's very fascinating that in our country, the best of the mind is working on problems which are directly related to people's, especially food security, people's problem in general, but especially to food security. Now, to a lay person, It would appear that you're working on soybean. What is so great about it? How difficult it is to change the characteristics of a crop to suit the taste buds in the country. How much time have you taken to work on that?
It is like any other crop. Is actually all the parameters, they are controlled by gene. To work on gene for yield or for some other parameter, it is similar. So naturally it takes time to get a desirable genotype. It took around 10 to 12 years to get the desirable genotypes.
10 to 12 years, you and your team and your husband has been working on the same problem to change the characteristics, taste, and make it better crop for the Indian population. That's a long time. Your child must have grown in this period.
Yeah.
And have gone much ahead of omega-3 acid. Is he also going for agriculture?
No, he has decided to go for sports. He plays cricket. He has played an under 16 team also. He's more interested
National
in
team?
He's more interested in sports, and he's doing B in computer sciences.
Okay. Coming back to the work that you have been doing, your institute has taken license for 3 different varieties which have been released to the industry. How successful has it been, and what are the exact changes that you have brought about?
Actually, we have licensed 3 genotype to 2 industries, that is ITC and Ruchi soybean. One is high oleic and other 2 are free of trypsin inhibitor. Actually, we gave the license just last year. They are multiplying the seed. They are thinking of incorporating those varieties into their some food product. They haven't divulged it.
What was the problem that you have solved?
We have solved, first is Kunis trypsin inhibitor, which is the anti-nutritional factor. We have freed our genotype from that anti-nutritional.
Because of Kunids, it doesn't get absorbed in the body when it goes to small intestine and large intestine. So you have suppressed that particular gene.
We have removed that
removed completely from
genetically removed from that genotype.
How did you do that?
Actually, we had a source from USDA which had a null allele of that Kunis trypsin inhibitor, and we took that allele and worked on the marker related to those alleles, and through marker assisted approach we incorporated that allele into Indian soybean. So we developed Indian soybean which is free of Kunis trypsin inhibitor.
And it was not genetic engineering?
No, it was not genetic engineering. That is a different aspect. I am working on that aspect also, but for the different characters.
Okay. You also improved the oil content in the crop.
Right.
How did you achieve that?
That's through traditional...
From 23% to 43%, am I right?
No, that is oleic acid.
Oleic acid content.
Yeah. Oleic acid content. That is...
Right, quality parameter. How did you achieve that?
That we achieved through traditional plant breeding methods, that is crossing to genotype which are having high to get higher oleic acid. Regular soybean has around 20 to 22% oleic acid, and rest 55% is linoleic, and the 7 to 8% is linolenic. This linoleic and linolenic, they are PUFA, that is polyunsaturated fatty acid.
Okay.
Because of the high concentration of PUFA in the soybean oil, the oil becomes oxidatively unstable. To make it stable, the oil industry go for partial hydrogenation, which leads to production of trans fats and which are not good for health. To solve that problem, we tried to increase the oleic acid content so that there is no need of hydrogenation. We could achieve up to 42% till now, and we are aiming it up to 60-65%, which is a composition which is very similar to olive oil composition. So we want to make an oil which is very similar to olive oil and which is oxidatively stable.
This will improve the oxygenation and oxidation stability of. Why is it important to increase the stability? Oxidation stability I am talking about.
Because if you keep oil at a room temperature which is not stable, you get off flavors from that. Nobody will eat that. So to solve the problem, industry is hydrogenating those oils, and which leads to trans fat, which is not good for health. So if you get a oil which is high in oleic acid, there won't be any need of hydrogenation.
So that will also increase the profitability because you are taking out one step
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the production process.
That will be cost saving also.
Cost saving
Also, yeah.
and profitability
Profitable.
increase. You are also working on high yield varieties now. Once you have achieved the characteristics improvement, how far you have gone into that work?
Actually, the existing variety potential yield is around 2.5 ton, but somehow farmers are not realizing that much yield, that is 1 to 1.5. So the special character we have incorporated over varieties which is not that high yielding, more than the existing varieties. So we are trying to make it high yielding so that farmer can take it and get the more produce and more income from the variety.
So you spent 10 years on improving the characteristics of soybean, and now you are working on improving the yield of the thing, and you took 10 years to do that. But then your contribution and your husband's contribution has been recognized by the nation. Did you feel excited about it?
Naturally, it feels good if you get recognized. But if you like your work, even if you don't get awards, even then you feel good.
You feel good when it's Eureka. I have cracked the problem. What was your Eureka moment?
Eureka moment is still to come. Still we have to achieve so many things in our genotype. It will come someday.
It'll come, you hope that it'll come.
Yeah, it will
It has not really come as
but
of
it will
yet.
come. Yeah, it will come. We are working on that.
It'll come. Would you like to sign off by giving a statement of encouragement to the younger generation to do science?
I would say be involved, enjoy every step of the process of your achieving your target. Even if you don't get award, you have already enjoyed your success.
So enjoyment of the process that you are involved in is the reward, is the major reward.
Right.
Even if you are not recognized by others, if you are recognized by your peers and you are able to do something for the society, that is great. Thank you very much for giving so much of time to Rajya Sabha channel from your very busy schedule. We'll come back next week with another fascinating scientist. However, may I promise our viewers on your behalf that we will be ready to answer any questions, or maybe they'll make comments and you will respond to that.
Right.
Write to us. Our email address is eurekarstv@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with another fascinating scientist, a first-rate scientist. Keep watching Eureka every week.